Unfortunately, so far it's been a bit bland, boring, uninspired, and kind of lacking in luster. From what I've played so far of the game and from what I've seen, I don't really feel like I can recommend this game. The game started to feel like a hack and slash melee game. There's no rolling or jumping like a Dark Souls game,
What up, motherfuckers, back with another video. So recently the Resident Evil 4 remake came out, and personally I've been having a blast with the game. As someone who played the original, the remake remains faithful while adding on to the whole experience with tighter gameplay, more likable characters, and a more cohesive story. Now, is it a perfect game? Of course no, it's not. No game is. I do have some small nitpicks, like the camera kind of getting in your way sometimes when you're up against a wall or something, but overall it doesn't take away from the overall enjoyment of the game. I'd say just about everyone is in agreement that the remake is pretty solid. Well, aside from a few individuals like Griffin, what a less than pleasant time with the game, to say the very least.
If it just feels old, man. I'm already out of ammo. Dude, what the fuck is this shit? These controls are like really bad. This game is like way too slow. Oh my god. This is AIDS. Bro, I can't even like move. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god, dude.
Now, granted, you're totally entitled to your opinion of whether or not you like this game or not. Just how I'm entitled to my opinion of your opinion of whether or not you like this game or not. Straight up opinion inception, but in retrospect, Griffin looks like a goddamn philosopher compared to the motherfucker we're taking a look at today. Because, my god, I think I've quite possibly found the worst take on this game thus far, courtesy of a dude called Expert Review Zone, in this video titled, Do Not Buy Resident Evil 4 Remake. And let me tell you, dude, there's nothing expert about this video or channel, especially considering the fact we're dealing with the same dude who spent well over 20 minutes saying how much he wants to bone fictional teenagers and a Hogwarts Legacy character creator.
And if I could choose between hanging out with a guy or a girl, I'd choose to hang out with a girl.
Not some smelly man.
I want to make a cute girl. I don't really care about a guy. No. I want her to be pretty. Finding it hard to make her look attractive. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't perv on the characters, because aren't they teenagers? Does that make me a pedo if I'm like, wow,
I would smash her.
Does that make me a pedo? She's cute. If this was Tinder,
I was gonna smash.
I kind of like this girl. Oh, that's kind of cute. Why do fringes always make girls look really cute? I think it
makes them look younger somehow.
This is what, I mean, I wish my girlfriend looked like this.
But that means my girlfriend looks like a 15-year-old.
We have to remember, these are like 50, how old are 50 years in Harry Potter? I'm gonna be like a massive pedo in this stream. 50-year age in Hogwarts.
15 to 16, oh my god.
They're not talk about wanting to smash them.
They look like adults though, they don't look like kids.
You know, truly some riveting stuff, but with all of that out of the way, let's learn why we shouldn't buy the Resident Evil 4 remake, according to Jeffrey Epstein over here.
Hello, welcome back to a new video review. So recently I've been playing the brand new Resident Evil 4 remake, and as an avid fan of Resident Evil and horror games in general, I knew I just had to play this game. Unfortunately, so far it's been a bit bland, boring, uninspired, and kind of lacking in luster.
Wow, off to a phenomenal start already. According to Jared from Subway over here, the game is quote-unquote bland, boring, and lacking luster, whatever the fuck that means. You know, I'm not sure what game you were playing, but calling it the latter is quite a stretch to say the very least.
So, as someone who really enjoyed the Resident Evil 2 and 3 and 1 remakes...
Wait a minute, did you just say you enjoyed the Resident Evil 2 remake? When you literally have a video on your channel called, Why I Hate Resident Evil 2 Remake? I mean, I guess you're either bipolar or this is just some elaborate troll. But you know, the possibilities are truly endless when motherfuckers like Robreach exist, aka the furry Carmen went a vendetta against me because I called him names on Discord and said that the PlayStation DualSense controller was a vibrator. But you know, that's neither here nor there. The furry Carmen will get his turn when the time comes.
I thought, okay, Resident Evil 4 remake, it's the same game as the original Resident Evil 4, but it's a remake, so obviously it's going to look better and play better, just like the other remakes have been quite enjoyable so far. Unfortunately, for some reason, I feel like they've kind of slipped the ball on this remake version.
You hear that, guys? Capcom have slipped the ball with the Resident Evil 4 remake. Even though the majority of people are in agreement this remake is great, and arguably better in ways than the original. But what do I know, right? Bust out your notepads, cause just like the almighty free Carman put it,
I think you should take some fucking notes.
I don't know what it is about Resident Evil 4 that doesn't really feel the same, doesn't really have the same vibes or atmosphere as Resident Evil 1, 2, or 3, but it doesn't really feel or play like a Resident Evil game.
you know, dude, I think you're gonna need to be a bit more specific about what you mean by it supposedly not playing like a Resident Evil game. When not even taking the side games into account, every other mainline game plays differently. I mean, the series started out as these more slow-paced survival horror puzzle games with these fixed angles that make controlling the characters feel like pushing a fridge through a hallway until like the original Resident Evil 4, which then changed the perspective to essentially third-person shooters, until Capcom changed the perspective again with Resident Evil 7 and 8 to first-person, and then the remakes play like a in-between of the classics and the third-person shooters. So overall, dude, I think you're gonna need to be a bit more specific than just saying it doesn't play like a Resident Evil game.
Okay, it kind of looks like one, it's got a very similar control system, inventory system and everything, but there's something about it that isn't very Resident Evil-y.
So you say it looks like a Resident Evil game, you say the controls similarly to the other remakes, has an inventory system, yet literally 5 seconds ago you were going on about how it doesn't feel and play like a Resident Evil game. Now granted, there's more to it than that, but you get what I mean.
So as you know, the original Resident Evil games took place in or around Raccoon City, and there was a police station, a scary mansion, and basically Resident Evil 3 was like a combination of being on the streets and back in the police station again. But because Raccoon City got blown up at the end of Resident Evil 3, obviously you can't really have any more Resident Evil games in Raccoon City, and I think that's a real shame because I feel like without Raccoon City, Resident Evil doesn't really have many legs to stand on.
So because the game doesn't take place in Raccoon City, it's bad. Like, damn, I guess this dude forgot about like 2/3 of the fucking series. Don't get me wrong, Raccoon City is iconic, but saying that Resident Evil doesn't have many legs to stand on without it is beyond retarded.
They basically just take the same concept of walking around in dark, scary buildings, but they've moved it now to a European village that is full of kind of farmer peasant people who seem to have some kind of infection, but they're not really like zombies.
Yeah, maybe because they're literally not zombies. They're infected with essentially these mind-controlling parasites that burst out of their fucking heads and look like some shit out of Parasite, which get progressively more mutagenic with different variants as the game goes on. Like, what are you trying to prove here? You're just stating what's basically common knowledge to anyone even slightly familiar with the game and trying to use that as a fault with the game.
So they're still alive and they can talk and they're like cognitive humans, and they've got some kind of worm things coming out of their bodies which gives them superhuman abilities. So they're infected with something. I guess it's not the T virus because they're not the same zombies as you would expect from Resident Evil games.
Are you seriously trying to imply Resident Evil 4 is bad because it doesn't have zombies? Talk about missing the point if you think zombies are a mandatory cornerstone of the series. Zombies and these parasites are just basic bitch cannon fodder for everything else. Resident Evil isn't about zombies, it's about bioweapons and biohazards. The series in Japan is literally called Biohazard.
And I feel like Resident Evil without zombies is kind of like peanut butter without marmalade, if you know what I'm saying. If you know what I'm saying.
No, Malcolm, I don't know what you're saying.
Now I'm saying.
But don't you guys just love it when people resort to food analogies? Like, dude, what the fuck kind of comparison is that? We're talking about a video game. And last I checked, you don't eat fucking video game disc made out of glass and plastic. Unless you want to give yourself internal bleeding.
It doesn't really feel like the same kind of game when you take away the zombies. The whole point of Resident Evil is the fact that it's supposed to be about zombies and you're supposed to be trying to survive against zombies.
No. Again, it seems you've completely missed the entire point of the series when you say the whole point of Resident Evil is centered around zombies and not bioweapons and biohazard.
Now, these technically aren't the same kind of zombies in the original Resident Evils.
Because they're literally not fucking zombies? Like, dude, how much of this game did you play? This shit is literally explained pretty early on in the game. Like, I'm guessing this dude pulled a Griffin and kept dying in the opening village ambush section and dropped the game afterwards, considering all of the footage in this video is from like the first 10 to 15 minutes of the game.
So I don't know what they were thinking with these kind of enemies, but I didn't really like fighting against them. I just felt like I was fighting against weird farmer bearded peasant men in a village.
You know what actually make the argument these serve better as an enemy type in a gameplay sense? For the horror action game, Resident Evil 4 is at its core. As the enemies are a lot more complex to deal with. Like, you know they're way more aggressive than regular zombies. Like, where zombies just kind of shuffle around and get in your way, they aren't really much of a threat other than just making you waste ammo and killing them. Cause my god, them shits were literal bullet sponges in Resident Evil 2. Meanwhile here, the Ganados, aside from basic melee attacks which you can parry with the knife, they can also grab you, giving other enemies like the dude with a chainsaw an opportunity to fucking saw your head off if you're not careful. It doesn't stop there either with enemies that throw fucking molotovs and dynamite at you, which you can shoot out of their hand, causing them to either combust into flames or explode into fucking smithereens. And then a bit later on in the game, when the parasites start bursting out of their heads, you gotta approach and handle them a bit differently, because if you get too close, they're gonna fucking slice you with their parasite blades, or just bite your damn head off. But anyway, tangent over.
And okay, it's not really that bad, I guess, as an enemy type, but it's just not as cool or interesting or even as scary as hordes of zombies trying to slowly shuffle their way towards you to eat you.
Really, dude? Mind controlling parasites aren't as cool or interesting as generic zombies? You know, I really don't feel like repeating myself, so simply refer to my previous point.
These zombies in this game don't even try to eat you. When they attack you, they just use like farm tools, pitchforks and axes, or they'll just punch you. I've never known of a zombie trying to punch you. They would usually try to grab you and bite you.
Wow, dude, it's almost as if they're not fucking zombies. Like, how much of this game have you played? I really get the feeling you dropped this game really early on.
But these enemies in this game don't even try to bite you, so they're not even trying to eat you.
I mean, technically, there's a variant of the parasite that can bite your head off, clean off. And these mutant dogs would try to rip your fucking throat out. But again, they're not zombies, and you would know that if you played the game for more than an hour.
So in this game, instead of wandering around a creepy police station or a creepy mansion, you wander around kind of like the countryside and you go to villages. And you're walking around inside of these kind of like old looking houses and huts made by villagers. And it just doesn't really feel very scary, to be honest. I found Resident Evil 2 really scary because of the idea of a police station, which is supposed to be the safest sanctuary in a city full of policemen that are good people. And then the idea of being in a police station that's completely empty and abandoned and the policemen have fallen to the zombies was just really creepy, and the atmosphere was just very dark and disturbing.
So that's disturbing, but a cult in a remote location where no one can help you, controlled by mind-controlling parasites that shoot out of their heads like goddamn Beyblades, isn't. Dude, the game's intro literally starts with a hiker being sacrificed and getting her head cut off. If that isn't disturbing, I don't know what is. Also, you only walk around the village in the first third of the game. You go to a castle directly afterwards, which gives off a classic Resident Evil vibe.
But in this game, wandering around these villages doesn't really feel the same. I don't really feel like the graphics of the game are that impressive for a game coming out in 2023. In fact, I would even say this game looks basically identical to Resident Evil 2. It's just Leon has a different kind of hairstyle, different color of hair. I don't know if it's because he's older now or maybe he dyed it, but he does look a bit more manly than he used to in Resident Evil 2. But apart from that, the game basically looks and feels the same as Resident Evil 2, the remake version.
Yeah, no, RE4 has objectively better graphics, but if you really want a comparison, go watch Digital Foundry or some shit.
You've got your pistol, it's kind of shaky when you're shooting, it's kind of hard to get headshots because the aiming cursor wobbles around so much and the enemies kind of sway left to right.
Yeah, dude, truly a tragedy. The enemies sway and don't just walk up to you in a straight line, as if they just came off of a conveyor belt. As far as you having problems aiming, I've spoken to many people who've played the remake, and I'd say the majority haven't had any issues with the controls. So I'd say it just comes down to you having a skill issue.
But the game, it doesn't really feel like it's breaking any new ground with the new graphics or anything, or the gameplay.
If you think the game looks exactly like the Resident Evil 2 remake, that mostly just comes down to the fact that leaps in video game graphics aren't as large as they were in the 2000s. We have pretty much reached the limit of being able to make games look any more photorealistic.
It basically just feels like Resident Evil 2, but replaced the zombies with farmer peasant people.
Oh yeah, totally, man, you're spot on. This game plays exactly like Resident Evil 2, where ammo and resources were scarce, and you were honestly better off at times just avoiding the zombies to begin with. Like, holy shit, Resident Evil 2 and 4 could not be farther apart in terms of the gameplay. In RE4, you're constantly cowering in fear, while in RE4, you're a literal mass murder machine.
So I want to talk about the combat of Resident Evil 4 Remake. It's kind of weird and different compared to the other Resident Evil games. Whereas in the original Resident Evil games, the combat was not really something that was very fancy or anything. It's just like, you got a pistol, you got a knife for self-defense, maybe a shotgun, gun. It was very bare bones, and you weren't really supposed to be running around gunning everything down. But in this game, it feels like it's more action oriented.
This dude's whole narrative of this game keeps changing. In the beginning, he was going on about how it doesn't feel and play like a Resident Evil game. Then later, he said it's basically just Resident Evil 2. And now he's acknowledging it's more fast-paced and action-oriented than some of the other games in the series. Like, what the fuck? I really don't get why it's so hard for motherfuckers on the internet to not be hypocritical retards that constantly contradict themselves.
And for example, you'd have a horde of villagers coming at you, and you're supposed to evade them or run away, or you can try to take them on. And the combat just feels kind of funny because it's like you're just mowing down these villagers, wandering slowly, walking slowly towards you, and then you're just spamming knife attacks at them and doing fancy finishing moves with the F button. The game started to feel like a hack and slash melee game because I kept running out of bullets. Like a hack and slash melee game.
Please don't tell me this dude is now saying that Resident Evil 4 is a fucking hack and slash game because it has a fucking knife. This dude really is like Griffin on steroids brought up to 11. Oh, and as far as you running out of bullets, maybe try breaking boxes around the environment, as they tend to drop not only ammo but gunpowder and other shit you can use to craft more ammo.
I don't know why Leon is so stupid. He goes on like this mission to do something and he only brings like 10 bullets with him. He doesn't even bring a box of ammunition. You're supposed to pick them up as you defeat enemies or you just find them lying around, but you're constantly running out of ammunition, so you can shoot like 10 shots before you have to resort to the knife.
The game starting you with 10 bullets is merely a design decision so the game doesn't give you too much ammo and make the game too easy. Also, you literally stayed away to get more ammo, yet you're here complaining about running out of said ammo.
And the knife is just like you're hack and slashing and spamming it at the enemies, and if they attack you, you can do like a counter attack where you have to spam the F button, and it just feels like a kind of like a dumb hack and slash game at this point.
Because it's not a hack and slash? Dude, literally all of your problems on this game, aside from complaining this game doesn't have zombies and doesn't take place in Raccoon City, comes down to you sucking ass at the game.
And I felt like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be a horror game and not this hack and slash action game with a knife. Why didn't he bring a katana and just cut them all down if he's so good with the blade?
Yeah, dude, a fucking katana. Resident Evil is fucking Ninja Gaiden now because this brainlet keeps running out of ammo.
The combat feels very frustrating because you start getting surrounded by the villagers and the controls are kind of annoying. To try and get out of a mob of enemies, you kind of have to like backtrack and go against where the camera is pointing, and you don't really know where you're facing. It's just kind of cumbersome. There's no rolling or jumping like a Dark Souls game,
Words fail to describe the levels of pure, unadulterated retardation and mental gymnastics we're being exposed to. But apparently this game is terrible because it's not like fucking Dark Souls where you can roll and jump. I swear we're descending deeper into insanity the longer this video goes on.
Be able to just roll out of the way. There's no rolling. You can't even block with your knife.
You don't really need to block when you can parry attacks.
So then later on in this village scene, if you decide to run away from the villagers, this guy with a massive chainsaw starts following you, and then basically you're just running around this village with this horde of dumb villagers walking to chase you. I don't know why they don't just run. They will just kind of walk towards you.
Weren't you earlier complaining about how this game doesn't have zombies? Like, dude, last time I checked, zombies in Resident Evil aren't exactly out here running a fucking marathon.
I kind of lost interest in the game at this point because it just felt so silly. I'm running around this village, got this mob of angry villagers trying to chase me, and I'm thinking, what the hell happened to Resident Evil?
That's right, man. We need to start a movement. Make Resident Evil great again. Oh, because this dude got the mental capacity of a lobotomized catfish.
This wasn't what the game used to be about. It used to be about being in a creepy building, getting spooked by maybe a few zombies that burst out of nowhere, being very stressed out because you don't really have many bullets or supplies or herbs to keep yourself alive.
I love how this motherfucker says Resident Evil isn't an action game, yet earlier he was complaining how he supposedly doesn't get enough bullets. Truly quality content right here, dude.
And this just feels silly. I don't know what I'm playing at this point. I just felt absolutely no fear, no scariness. The game's supposed to be a horror game, but you're in broad daylight outside in a village. It just doesn't really feel the same as being in a dark, dingy PlayStation all alone.
Wait, what? Being inside of a dark, dingy PlayStation? You know, last time I checked, Capcom hasn't made a Resident Evil game take place inside of a goddamn plastic gaming box. Well, hey, what do I know, right?
And you can hear like weird, scary sounds coming down from the corridor. The game just feels not scary, even though that's the whole point of Resident Evil games. From what I've played so far of the game and from what I've seen, I don't really feel like I can recommend this game, and I think I'm going to give this Resident Evil Remake a skip and play something else. My final verdict of this game would be do not buy, and I would have to give it a score of 6.2 out of 10.
Wow, and with that absolute abortion of a YouTube video comes to a close. Well, technically, there's B-roll footage without any commentary to get the video just over 8 minutes. But in conclusion, Resident Evil 4 Remake sucks, because it doesn't have zombies, and is apparently a hack-and-slash game. Oh, and because it isn't Dark Souls. Yeah, that's pretty much it, case closed.
I was lying in bed after we had sex. Mila went downstairs to make food, make coffee. And then her grandmother came up, knocked on the door, but then she just opened the door, and I was in the bed, and the blanket was like over my legs and my but my lower torso and my hips were kind of visible. Her grandmother came in, she looked, I saw her look at my body, she was like, oh, and then she went back out. It was funny.
Nah, but in all seriousness, that'll be it for this video. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like and subscribing to this channel, as your support is greatly appreciated. With that said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.